page 35 of 262. The Collapse of Complex Societies, by Joseph Tainter, 1988. Chapter 2. The Nature of Complex Societies. How wondrous this wall-stone, shattered by fate, Burg-places broken, the work of giants crumbled. Ruined are the roofs, tumbled the towers, broken the barred gate, frost in the plaster, ceilings a-gaping, torn away, fallen, eaten by age. Bright were the halls, lofty-gabled, many the bathhouse cheerful, the clamour in many a mead-hall, revelry rampant until mighty fate put paid to all that. The Ruin Exeter Book, an 8th century AD Saxon poet, remarking on Roman ruins in Britain, quoted in Magnusson 1980, 125. Introduction. A study of why complex societies collapse should begin with a clear picture of what it is that does so. What, in other words, are complex societies? What are their defining characteristics? How do they differ from the simpler societies out of which they developed, and to which they often revert? Are complex societies a discrete type or a stage in cultural evolution? Or is there a continuum from simple to complex? A related question is why complex societies develop. This, as noted, has been a question of perennial interest in the social sciences. Although much is now known about the evolution of complexity, there is no overall consensus about such things as why complexity emerges, why societies become stratified, why the small, independent groups of early human history have given way to the large, interdependent states of recent millennia. This is without doubt a fascinating topic, and one that offers a tempting diversion for the present work. It is a diversion that will largely have to be resisted. It cannot be wholly resisted, for collapse may not be understood except in the context of how complex societies function and operate, and that cannot be divorced from the question of how they have come into being. As in any scientific endeavor, one question leads to another, one problem appears connected to all others, and one of the most difficult tasks is simply to draw boundaries to the inquiry. To explain collapse, it will be necessary to discuss, briefly, alternative general views of how complex societies have developed, and to evaluate the usefulness and relevance of these views to the problem at hand. The lively and interesting debate over what, if any, are the prime movers in the development of complexity is regrettably only partially pertinent. Accordingly, it will be treated in only a partial fashion. In this chapter 3 topics will be addressed: 1. The nature of complexity, 2. The question of whether complexity is a continuum or is characterized by discrete stages, and 3. Major views on the emergence of complex societies. The discussion that follows will be necessarily selective, focusing on those aspects of the evolution of complexity that are relevant to understanding collapse. 2.1 Complexity. Nature of complexity. Complexity is generally understood to refer to such things as the size of a society, the number and distinctiveness of its parts, the variety of specialized social roles that it incorporates, the number of distinct social personalities present, and the variety of mechanisms for organizing these into a coherent, functioning whole. Augmenting any of these dimensions increases the complexity of a society. Hunter-gatherer societies, by way of illustrating one contrast in complexity, contain no more than a few dozen of distinct social personalities, while modern European censuses recognize 10,000 to 20,000 unique occupational roles, and industrial societies may contain overall more than 1 million different kinds of social personalities. McGuire 1983, 115. Two concepts important to understanding the nature of complexity are inequality and heterogeneity. Blau 1977, McGuire 1983. Inequality may be thought of as vertical differentiation, ranking, or unequal access to material and social resources. Heterogeneity is a subtler concept. It refers to the number of distinctive parts or components to a society, and at the same time to the ways in which a population is distributed among these parts. Blau 1977, 9 Maguire 1983, 93. A population that is divided equally among the occupations and roles of a society is homogeneously distributed. The converse brings increasing heterogeneity and complexity. See also Tainter 1977, 1978. A society with a great deal of heterogeneity, then, is one that is complex. Inequality and heterogeneity are interrelated, but in part respond to different processes, and are not always positively correlated in socio-political evolution. Maguire 1983, 93, 105. In early civilizations, for example, inequality tended to be initially high and heterogeneity low. Through time, inequality decreased and heterogeneity grew as multiple hierarchies would develop. Maguire 1983, 110-11. Johnson relates this process to growth and the amount of information that must be processed by a society, with greater quantity and variety of information requiring greater social complexity. 1978, 91, 94. Complex societies tend to be what Simon has called nearly decomposable systems. 1965, 70. That is, they are at least partly built up of social units that are themselves potentially stable and independent, and indeed at one time may have been so. Thus, a newly established state may include several formerly independent villages or ethnic groups, or an empire may incorporate previously established states. To the extent that these states, ethnic groups, or villages retain the potential for independence and stability, the collapse process may result in reversion, decomposition, to these building blocks of complexity. Cf. Simon 1965, 68. Page 37.